I'm Charlie, and this is Munching Around Milwaukee. Munching Around Milwaukee is a podcast where we talk with local chefs, restaurateurs, foodies, and food influencers about our great, vibrant food scene here in Milwaukee. So today, my guest is James Beard Award-winning chef Adam Siegel. And Adam is the chef and co-owner, along with his wife Daria, of Lupi Iris in downtown Milwaukee in the 777 building. Lupi Iris is a wonderful restaurant, and in your first year, nominated for a James Beard Award also as the best new restaurant in the United States. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
So thanks for coming. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Great to see you. We have some food here we're going to talk about in just a minute. But what I want to start as we're going through this food. I'm excited about the food, which I should be more excited about the guests, but I'm excited about the food.
Being excited about the food is quite important. So
we'll get started with you were born in Chicago,
right?
And which I mentioned to you, which means Derek Mosley thinks that you walk on water and all things Chicago. So you can probably do no wrong with Derek.
He probably does, but doesn't, because I'm not a Bears fan. So
no, he doesn't care. He claims the Pope. He claims everything. He's just
right.
So with that, let's get. This is tapenade.
Yep, some Niçoise olive tapenade.
All right, and this is a romesco.
That is romesco.
All right, and this is a nice
marinated spring vegetables.
All right, so we got peas,
fava beans. There's
beans?
There's asparagus in there.
Asparagus, there you go.
And shallots and mint and herbs.
And we
some
got
smoked trout.
Smoked trout, yes, and some
fresh ricotta cheese.
Ricotta.
And then we have some toasted country French bread and some crackers, and then my grandmother's cookies, which are some of my favorite things.
All right,
in the
so
world.
I'm going to put my napkin in my lap, and I'm going to, since you're the guest, why don't you go first, and then we'll kind of just talk as we're going along. So
sure.
So talk a little bit about your early years growing up, and where your passion for cooking and food came from.
Well, I'm from Chicago originally, but I moved around quite a bit. So my high school years were spent in Florida, and
where in Florida?
In South Florida.
Which part?
Near Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs.
Okay, sure. East Coast.
Yep, East Coast. And I grew up in a family restaurant, and I also started working in restaurants at an early age, and that's how I kind of fell in love with cooking. So throughout high school, I was a line cook and everything, and
that's good.
Yeah, and so I really developed a passion for it, and I was either going to go to school for art, or I was going to not go to school, and I had a family member that convinced me I should try going to. Here's some bread for you. Prego. Said that I should go to culinary school because I was working in a restaurant. I loved cooking. I cooked at their house all the time. And so I gave it a shot. I had just moved back to Chicago from Florida when I was finished with high school, and so I went to culinary school, and that's where it really, a lot of it started.
So the culinary school was in San Francisco?
No, the culinary school was in Chicago. I went to Kendall College.
Okay.
The culinary school at Kendall College, which was in Evanston back then. So it was basically almost on the northwestern campus.
How long is a culinary school program? Because the majority of people will never go to culinary school.
Right.
We got a culinary class, cooking class.
Right.
So
it was a 2.5 year program. We did 3 trimesters, and then you did a 6-month internship in a restaurant, and so I did that. So it went 1 year, and then 6 months on the internship, and then finished off with another year. I did my apprenticeship at Spiaggia in Chicago.
Right.
That's when Paul Bartolotto was there, and my 6-month internship turned into 3 years of employment. I stayed working while I went and finished school, and it was great. taught me a lot. I was able to work just about every single station in both the cafe Spiaggia and Spiaggia dining room, and it was a tremendous time. And from there, I moved to after there I moved to San Francisco and went to work for Julian Serrano, who was the chef of Masa's in San Francisco. And I was there for 3 years, and that was incredible. Being in San Francisco, where the produce and all the products were just like the most amazing in the world, just about was eye-opening. And Julian was the type of chef that was working on a station next to you. So, and it was an amazing kitchen. It was 60 seats, and we did 120 covers every 5 nights a week.
Wow.
No matter what. So
that's amazing. And so then I know you end up in D.C. at some point.
Well, first, after San Francisco, I moved to Italy. And I worked in Italy for a year at San Domenico of Imola, which it was an amazing experience. Traveled around Italy, got to learn a lot about tradition and culture, which was really important to me. And while I was at San Domenico, we went from a 1-star to 2-star Michelin restaurant. So it was really neat to be a part of that team that, had earned that second star. And from there, I moved back to D.C. and helped open up one of Todd English's restaurants, Olives, in Washington, D.C. as a sous chef.
So I had a couple questions about Italy. So we were in Italy for about 6 weeks last fall. And I wrote to I was in 2 cities, Viareggio for 2 weeks and Lucca for 4 weeks. And so I just wanted to go and hang in a restaurant. Can I help with prep? Can I, chop So I sent in Italian, because I can speak Italian, a letter or email to anyone who had a social media presence in the city of Lucca, and was waiting for all these responses, and
they never heard of social media.
But what's amazing, and that's what I wanted to ask you about your adventure in Italy, is that most of the places, especially the osterias and the tazzerias, small kitchens.
Yes.
Like La Dama, La Crazy Water, and even Amalinda over.
That's the normal.
And that's how big they are. But they turn out tremendous food from a little teeny space.
Our kitchen wasn't so tiny in Imola.
Well, I guess it's a 2-star Michelin restaurant.
We had a very nice kitchen, but I did work in those types of kitchens because I would go and stage at many restaurants throughout the country when I had days off or was able to. And there's a lot of those osterias that have those smaller kitchens because it's they have. Not necessarily always smaller menus, but more simple. Like, they can have 5 ingredients, but have 50 dishes with those 5 ingredients, and they all are different.
That's Italian cooking is simple, limited ingredients, mostly because it's cucina povera, which is, poverty cooking for lack of a...
But it's also what's in season or what they've preserved, and it's, the complexity of it is behind the simplicity.
Right.
And it's so much harder to make a simple dish than it is a complex dish. You can't mask flavors, or anything like that. So were you only in Emilia Romagna, or were you traveling throughout the country? All over the country.
So did you notice a difference between the cuisines in northern Italy towards the Mediterranean, in the Tuscany? It just seems like there's a whole different way that if you're in Viareggio, a lot of seafood.
It varied everywhere. Everybody has their pastas. There are the commonalities like if Parmigiano is used in these areas, this type of pecorino is used in this area. They have their pasta shapes that are significant to their town or their region. But they all vary. There are a few similarities, but they all vary, and it's all based upon the culture and tradition of those specific areas. And it was great to learn all that, and that was why I really wanted to be in smoked trout, in That's why I really wanted to be in Italy, was to learn all that.
It had been an amazing experience. I'm very jealous, even though
I
I
mean,
can cook a little, but I'm not I'm not even close to your level. But yeah, it was a great experience. So I'm glad you got to experience that. So eventually, you traverse your way back, or you traverse your way here to Milwaukee.
yeah. So while I was in Washington D.C., I met my wife Daria, and we were looking to maybe moving somewhere, and we hadn't decided. We talked about going. She's from New York, going to New York, or we talked about moving to maybe California or something like that. But then an opportunity came out here in Milwaukee with the Bartolotta restaurants, and it seemed like a good move. Could possibly, thought, yeah, sure, why not? We can maybe do this for a year or two at the most, and then move on. And it's
25 years later.
25 years later. There was a lot of opportunities for me here, and it was when I moved here in 2000. The culinary scene was very limited.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge thing, and it was fun to be a part of helping grow this culinary field that we now have. To see where it went from the time that I got here to where it is now is incredible, and it was fun to be able to mentor a lot of the current chefs and people that are out there.
We can talk about the Adam Siegel cooking tree eventually, but and there is a lot of it's like coaching trees in
right,
sports.
Yeah.
People you got the guy up here, and then people come down who've worked under you and picked up how to do things the right way. So Lake Park Bistro, I was not here when Lake Park Bistro opened.
Right.
So we didn't move here till 2010. But my understanding was that it was an abandoned building on the park.
Right.
That became a destination.
Became a destination, and it was it's all the way out, along the lake and on the east side, in this neighborhood, a beautiful neighborhood. And that's where I came to work. And, it opened in 95. I started there in September. So the restaurant was just about 4.5 years old. Or I started there in May. The restaurant was just about 4.5 years old. Mm-hmm. And, I started and worked my way up. I was brought in as an executive sous chef and then became the executive chef there by 2003. Mark Weber was the chef there, who was great to work with, and I had a lot of fun with him in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And learned a lot from him. And I was young and hungry. I was really hungry, and I think being in Milwaukee, compared to some of the places that I had been working in the culinary field, I saw a lot of opportunity, and I went for it. And I think that Joe Bartolotta saw that in me, and some of the other people that were part of the Bartolotta restaurants at that time. John Wise, the director of operations then, and we wanted more, and so the restaurant group, it grew,
yeah. And
it was fun to be a part of that, to be the person who helped grow that company to what it was.
Well, we talked about this a little earlier, but I lived right down the road on Lake Drive from Lake Park Bistro. And that I hate to say it was our neighborhood joint because it does a disservice to Lake Park Bistro, but that was our neighborhood place where we could go and feel comfortable.
And it was great, for that.
Yeah.
We had so many amazing regulars that would come in, and Tuesday night was their night at the bar, or this night was their night at the bar, and you would always know that you would see them. But then it was a destination for people, and they would come in and for their birthdays or anniversaries or special occasions, or just it was their night when they were going to catch up with friends that they hadn't seen in a while. And we were a culinary destination, and as I said, I pushed and pushed and pushed. In 2007, I was nominated for the James Beard Award for Best Chef, and and then won it the following year in 2008, and it was what it did for and it was I won the award with my my name was on the award with Lake Park Bistro, but all the people that I worked with also earned that award because we all made that restaurant special, and it was great to be a part of that. And in 2008, and in 2009, all of a sudden we got hit with a recession.
Right.
Well, Lake Park grew, so it's kind of good timing, I guess.
Well, to me, Lake Park had great food, great service. It was very centrally located and had this great vista view of Lake Michigan. And it had almost unlimited free parking in there.
Had a great parking lot for a restaurant.
Right. So yeah, that's for most of the places in town, especially downtown, and Lupi and Iris is no different. The parking on the street is somewhat limited. Lake Park Bistro, because there was a very famous golf course there.
Yep.
It's a par 3 that you could play in an hour and a half, and we used to play every Sunday.
It's a great golf course.
It is. But the service, and it carries over.
You look like you need some more trout.
Oh yes, I do. The service carries over to Lupi and Iris, and when we talked about Lupi and Iris, I want to tell you about one of your bartenders and how amazing she was, helpful, knowledgeable, but the service the same people I think were there at Lake Park Bistro for years and years and years, and I never met you there, but you could see you up in the kitchen because the kitchen, open kitchen, and sitting at the bar. It's kind of a rectangular bar, a horseshoe, and you could see everything being prepared right there. So I guess, there's Seth right there. So we loved Lake Park, and then the pandemic comes,
right?
And everybody has a problem.
Yes.
So somewhere in that time frame between the start of the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, Lupi and Iris is conceived. So why don't you talk about how this comes from Lake Park, where you're a James Beard award-winning chef, to another restaurant where you're nominated eventually in the first year as the best new restaurants in the United States.
So in 2015 or 16, I started thinking about my future, and was there going to be one for me with the Bartolotta restaurants? Should I start thinking about owning my own place because I'm in my mid 40s at that point, and so in 2017 I started thinking about it more, and then in 2018 I really started thinking about it, and I actually said something to Joe. I'm thinking about maybe opening up my own restaurant one day. He couldn't have been happier for me. Said whenever you do whatever you want to do, you take your time, and he probably would have invested from the talks and conversations that we had. But anyhow, that didn't happen, and unfortunately Joe passed away in 2019. The building became available during COVID, and it became an opportunity, and I thought it was a perfect location in downtown on the Northwestern campus in a beautiful high-rise building, and with hotels nearby, parking, residential, everything, easy access to 794. To get through downtown, being on Mason Street, to get to Lincoln Memorial Drive, so you can connect to, north and south. It was just great. So it was a great opportunity, and I love the Mediterranean flavors, but I didn't want to just be, one particular area. I love French, I love Italian, and I love Spanish cuisines, and I like, I had been cooking heavy bistro food for so many years that I wanted to do something that I, enjoyed just as much, and so I decided to do more Mediterranean flavors, a little bit more olive oil focused than butter, but there still is a good amount of butter. And
no such thing as too much butter,
right? And but the best thing is that for the cuisine and everything, that there aren't any true rules because, if I wake up one day and I want to do something with the food, I can.
Well, I know one of the things that came from Lake Park to Lupi and Iris was the Dover sole. Mm-hmm. That was a big seller at Lake Park, and the reason I bring that up is the waitress, and I'm not waitress, the bartender that we had. I don't remember her name. She was short, younger. I'm sure you know who that is. But she was great, helping, blah blah. So one of the patrons, apparently, I think it's probably someone who lives in the building, ordered Dover sole. So she is filleting and deboning the Dover sole there at the bar while she's working, while she's waiting on everybody. And I'm thinking, I hate cooking whole fish. I butcher it all the time. And she's, in the middle of her duties in a crowded Friday during happy hour, she's deboning a fish. And so I thought that was great. And then you have on the bar, there's a bunch of bottles that have ridges, grooves in them. There's like
Bacta.
Right. Well, there's like 10 or 15 of them, and I'm looking at them, and my wife's going, those are for decoration. I said, I don't think so.
Nope.
So we called her over and asked her, and she took about 5 minutes to, well, here's Armagnac, and this is what this one is, and this, and da-da-da-da. And I thought, knowledgeable, friendly, personable.
I love hearing that.
And, she was, but she couldn't have been nicer. And I felt bad taking up some of her time on a busy Friday night.
But that's part of the experience. You're not just going to, for me, I don't want you coming to Lupi and Iris just for the food or the beverage. I want you going there for the complete experience.
Right.
And that's something that my wife Jerry and I preach all the time to the staff. Is that we want you to give the best experiences possible. So it's hospitality. Darius stresses this all the time. You are going to win people over with hospitality,
right?
And making sure that they're in an environment that they want to be in, and the service and the attention to detail is extremely important to be a part of that because we want you to feel special. We want you to feel like you're coming to our home. We want you to feel like you're a part of something. We want you to feel like you left there, not just like, okay, yeah, I ate dinner. No, but you went and you had an experience.
Well, there's a commonality between Lake Park and Lupi and Iris. The service was top notch. Anytime you went, very friendly, knowledgeable.
I love hearing that.
So.
And a lot of the staff, like you said, has worked with me over the past years. Scott Williams, our general manager, he and I were the team at Lake Park Bistro for all those 21 years. He was the front of the house, I was the back of the house, and we were.
This romesco sauce is so good.
So it was, and then other managers on the team, other chefs on the team have worked with me for years and years, and bringing a little bit of that experience, and then passing it down, and then training all these new people, and then a lot of the newer people who are bringing their experiences with, just creates a great environment.
So I know one of the bartenders, I'm like 99% sure she was at Lake Park Bistro serving, and my wife loved the mussels.
Right.
And we get the mussels. She always wanted to get the curry sauce, curry powder. And we had to always order extra bread because there was never enough bread to soak up the juices from those mussels. And just... That was great. We love that. So I did have a couple questions about the menu. So on the happy hour, there's a cocktail, the A. Siegel house cocktail, with Basil Hayden bourbon. So at first I looked at it and said, is this basil infused? And no, it's the guy's name. But
so Basil Hayden is a bourbon. It's a brand of bourbon.
Right. It's a Jim Beam.
It's my daily drinker. If I have, I'm not a big beer drinker or anything. I drink wine. I love wine and I love bourbon. So, I am not a cocktail drinker. And when we were opening up the restaurant and coming up with different cocktails that like named after people who in my family and other things, and they were all coming up with these crazy cocktails. They asked me, "What's your cocktail?" I said, "Do you want my perfect cocktail?" And I said, "Basil Hayden, ice cube." Stop. And it's a perfect cocktail to me.
Well, it's right up at the top of the list for for a happy hour.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I'm not a bourbon drinker, but I might have to give it a try next time we're in. And we had a couple of the arancini, spot on. There's a little dollop of aioli on top.
Yep.
And then we had a chickpea appetizer too.
Okay, but the panisse.
Yes,
Panisse
yes, that's it.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
So panisse is it's almost like polenta, but made with chickpea flour. We make ours with the chickpea flour and a court bouillon, which is vegetable stock, and olive oil, and you heat it up. You whisk in the chickpea flour, and you let it set. And typically in France, they'll make thinner than I do, and then they'll pan fry it in olive oil, and you can eat it with aioli or some sort of dip. And so,
Good.
yeah, and it's I use it for our vegan items in the menu and everything, but it's really delicious. It's so much more earthy and it's such a great depth of flavor, more so than just different than polenta.
Yeah.
So it's unique for people to try that.
It was fascinating and delicious. I mean, it's I would expect nothing less than have something delicious at any place that you're at. So,
Well, thank you.
We'd like to keep these under half an hour, so I want to try to get you out of here quickly.
Sure.
As quick as possible. But we have to try one of your. Tell me what's the Hebrew word for grandmother?
Ima.
Ima. Said not no nuts. Ima's cookies.
So it's I grew up with these. They're my grandmother's cookies. They're almond and walnuts, butter, flour, sugar, and then they're just baked and tossed in some powdered sugar. And we used to serve them to everybody at the end of the meal, the first year that we were opened, and then now we have them. We do sell them, bags of them, or a plate of cookies at the end of the meal, and they're just delicious.
I don't want to get anybody jealous, but I'm taking these home.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite things in the world, and they just
goodness.
bring back such a good memory for me. They're not Mediterranean, but they're family, and that's part of what
Delicious.
we want at Lupi and Iris is to bring that family feeling.
Well, this has been tasty and interesting. Really appreciate you taking the time today. You're missing the lunch rush.
Every once in a while to miss that lunch rush is okay.
Well, Lupi and Iris is continually, every year, on the best restaurants list, who's ever putting it together and within Milwaukee. It's one of the best restaurants in the United States, obviously having been in the consideration for James Beard Award for Best New Restaurants. Love going there. Adam is a great part of our city. As a transplant from Chicago, we'll forgive you for that.
Yeah.
But I'm not from here either, so I do appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
So if you're in Milwaukee and you have a chance, Lupi and Iris is in the 777 building. I don't know why we have a 333 building over in Water. We've got the 777. Anyway. Adam will get you, and he'll get you. He get you a deal on everything.
Yeah.
That's how. What a kind of guy Adam is. But I know,
Just
great.
say Charlie sent me.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. You know who Charlie is. But thanks so much for supporting Munching Around Milwaukee. Each week we talk one of our great chefs, restaurateurs, foodies, or food influencers about our great food scene. And as you can see from all this stuff in here, we had a good one this week. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Go to Lupi and Iris.